Call your country mother. Tell her to come to the wedding. But the main thing is, make sure she's cleaned up." Those were the exact words my daughter-in-law, Victoria, yelled over the phone, laughing hysterically along with my son, Michael. They were inviting me to my granddaughter Emily's wedding. But when I actually showed up at the church, everyone froze, completely paralyzed. And what happened next changed everything forever. Let me tell you how I got to that moment. How a 67-year-old widow, a humble woman from the country, managed to silence an entire family of arrogant, wealthy people just by walking through that door. But for you to understand the magnitude of what happened that day, I need to take you back to the beginning, to the exact moment my world fell apart. I was in my small house, that humble little bungalow on the outskirts of town with concrete walls I had helped raise myself after being widowed 20 years ago. My hands were full of dirt because I had just been watering my tomato plants in the small backyard garden. Those wrinkled hands, weathered by years of work under the sun, hands that never knew the softness of expensive creams or the rest of an easy life. The phone rang. My heart leaped when I saw the name on the screen. Michael, my son. He hadn't called me in 3 months. 3 long months in which I asked myself every night if I had done something wrong, if I had offended him in some way. I wiped my hands on my apron and answered with that foolish excitement only a mother can feel. "Michael, son, how are you?" My voice trembled with joy. "Mom, I have news," he said. His tone was strange, distant, as if he were reading from a script. "Emily is getting married." The tears came immediately. Emily, my beautiful granddaughter, the girl I held in my arms the day she was born because Victoria didn't want me touching her with my country hands. The girl to whom I secretly sang lullabies when her mother wasn't looking. She was getting married. "Oh, son, what a joy! What wonderful news!" I managed to say through my sobs. "When's the wedding? I need to start saving up to buy her a nice gift." It was then that I heard it. The speakerphone. Michael had put the damned speakerphone on. And Victoria's voice echoed like the hiss of a snake in my ear. "Listen, Michael. Call your country mother. Tell her to come to the wedding." And then, with that mocking tone that always made me feel so small, she added, "But the main thing is, make sure she's cleaned up. We don't want her embarrassing Emily with that farm smell." She laughed. My God, how she laughed. Shrill cackles that pierced my soul. And the worst part, the thing that completely destroyed me, was hearing my own son's laughter. Michael was laughing with her. My son, the boy I raised alone after his father died, the boy for whom I worked 18-hour days in the fields so he could go to college and have a better life, was laughing at me. "Victoria, please," I heard Michael say, but without conviction, like someone asking a person to turn down the radio, not like someone defending his own mother. "What's wrong, Michael? Are you ashamed of your mother?" "I'm just telling the truth. Look at how she lives. In that miserable little house, with her chickens and her plants. Can you imagine if she shows up like that at the wedding? It's at the Crestview Manor, the most elegant place in the entire state. Alexander is from an important family. His father owns 3 car dealerships. What are they going to think of us?" My legs began to tremble. I sat down in the old wooden chair by the table, the same table where I had served thousands of meals for my son when he was little, where I taught him to do his homework, where we cried together the day his father died. "Mom, are you still there?" Michael's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "Yes, son, I'm here," I whispered. I had no strength for more. "The wedding is next month, on the 28th. I'll text you the address. It's at the Crestview Manor, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The ceremony is in the chapel, and then the reception is in the gardens." "I'll be there," I said, though I don't know where I found the words. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Another cackle from Victoria. "Oh, Michael, I hope she at least buys a decent dress. I don't want to see her in those rags she wears to the farmer's market. And for God's sake, tell her to do her hair, to fix that gray mess like a respectable person." I hung up. I couldn't take any more. The phone slipped from my hands and fell onto the table. I just sat there, staring at the walls of my house, those walls that had witnessed so much struggle, so much sacrifice. I looked at my hands, those hands that Victoria despised so much, hands that had worked the earth since I was 8 years old, Hands that had sewn school uniforms late into the night so Michael could go to school clean. Hands that had caressed his forehead when he had a fever, that had prepared his favorite meals, that had applauded at every achievement in his life. And now, those same hands trembled with humiliation. I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried since the day I buried my husband. I cried for the injustice of it all, for having given my entire life for a son who was now ashamed of me, for having a daughter-in-law who treated me worse than an animal, for being poor, for being old, for being from the country. The sun began to set behind the hills. The shadows crept into my small living room. I sat there in the darkness, with no strength to get up and turn on a light. The crickets began their nightly song. Everything went on as normal. The world kept spinning as if nothing had happened. But something inside me had broken. How had it come to this? At what point had I become so despicable to my own family? I spent that whole night without sleeping. I stared at the ceiling of my room, the ceiling with a small leak I could never afford to fix. Every drop that fell into the plastic bucket was like a reminder of my poverty, of my insignificance. Victoria's words echoed over and over in my head. Country mother, make sure she's cleaned up. Farm smell. Every word was a lash that struck me without mercy. I got up at dawn. My bones creaked, as they always did. 67 years don't pass in vain, especially when you've spent most of your life working under the sun, carrying sacks, bending your back over the crops. I went out into the yard barefoot. The cool grass was wet with the morning dew. My chickens began to cluck, demanding their food. Life went on. It always does. But I couldn't go on like this. I couldn't breathe. The weight on my chest was unbearable. Then I remembered Catherine. Catherine, my childhood friend. The girl with whom I shared so much when we were young. We grew up together in the same town, in neighboring houses, both from farming families. We picked coffee beans together. We swam in the river. We dreamed of impossible futures while watching the stars, lying in the grass. But life separated us. She moved to the city more than 30 years ago, chasing a dream. I stayed, got married, and started my family here. We had almost completely lost touch. We only texted each other occasionally, wishing each other happy birthday, sending greetings on Christmas. Superficial things. I knew she had done well in life, that she had succeeded, but I never imagined how much. I never asked for details because I was ashamed of my own situation. What was I going to tell her? That I was still in the same humble little house? That I barely had enough to survive on my small pension? But that day, with a shattered heart and no one else to turn to, I picked up my old phone with trembling hands. I found her number. I hesitated for several minutes. What was I going to say? How was I going to explain how pathetic my life was? But the pain was so great that I needed to talk to someone. I needed a friend. I dialed. The phone rang 3 times before she answered. Eleanor? Her voice sounded surprised but warm. Is that you, my Eleanor? And just hearing my name said with such affection, I fell apart. I started crying uncontrollably. Deep sobs that came from the very bottom of my soul. What's wrong, my friend? What's happened? Talk to me, Catherine said. And I could hear the genuine concern in her voice. Between tears and with a broken voice, I told her everything. I told her about the call, about Victoria's words, about my son's laughter, about how I felt so small, so insignificant, so humiliated. I told her I didn't know if I should go to my own granddaughter's wedding because I was afraid of embarrassing her, afraid of embarrassing my family for being who I am, for being poor, for being from the country. There was a silence on the other end of the line, a long silence that scared me. I thought I had made a mistake by calling her, that she would judge me too. But when Catherine spoke again, her voice had completely changed. It was no longer soft, it was firm, hard as steel. Eleanor, listen to me. Listen to me very carefully because I'm only going to say this once. You have nothing to be ashamed of, absolutely nothing. That woman, that Victoria, has no right to treat you like that. And your son. Oh, Eleanor, your son is a coward for allowing it. But Catherine, she's right. I'm just an old country woman. I don't have an education. I don't have money. I don't have. No. Her voice was so loud it startled me. Don't you ever say that again. Do you know what you are? You are a woman who worked herself to the bone to give her son a better life. You are a dignified, honest, hard-working woman. Those hands she despises are honorable hands. Hands that never stole anything from anyone. Hands that built, that planted, that fed. And you know what else? I'm a country woman too, Eleanor. It doesn't matter how many years have passed. It doesn't matter where I am now. My roots are the same as yours. I kept crying, but it was different now. Someone was validating me. Someone was seeing me. Tell me one thing, Catherine continued. This wedding, where is it going to be? At the Crestview Manor, I answered between sobs. It's a very elegant, very expensive place. That's why Victoria is right too. The Crestview Manor. Catherine interrupted her. I heard something strange in her voice. Was it surprise? Was it something else? Are you absolutely sure it's at the Crestview Manor? Yes, my friend. Michael told me. He's going to text me the address. Another silence. I could hear Catherine breathing on the other end of the line. Then I heard her laugh. But it wasn't a mocking laugh like Victoria's. It was a laugh I couldn't decipher. A laugh that held a hint of justice, of satisfaction. Eleanor, my friend, my dear friend, when is this wedding? The 28th of next month. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Perfect. Listen to me carefully. I want you to go to that wedding. I want you to buy the most beautiful dress you can find. It doesn't matter what it costs. I'm going to wire you money right now. How much is a good dress over there? $300? $400? I'm going to send you $1,000. I want you to buy the dress, go to the salon, and get yourself fixed up like a queen. Did you hear me? Like a queen. Catherine, I can't accept your money. You've already been so kind just listening to me, but I can't. I'm not asking for your permission, Eleanor. I'm telling you what you're going to do. And there's something else. Something very important. I'm going to that wedding too. My heart stopped. What? No, Catherine. You can't. I won't drag you into this. Besides, you don't know my family. It would be strange if... Trust me, my friend. Just trust me. I won't let you down. Tell me the exact date and address when you have it. And, Eleanor, one more thing. Don't say anything to Michael or Victoria about our conversation. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Understood. But why? I don't understand. You'll understand soon enough. Soon everything will make sense. I just need you to trust me. Can you do that for me? For our friendship. Something in her voice made me believe her. Something in the way she spoke gave me a hope I hadn't felt in years. Yes, Catherine. I trust you. Good. Now go and wash your face. Take a deep breath. And wait for my transfer. It'll arrive in the next few hours. Use that money. Get yourself ready. And on the day of the wedding, walk in with your head held high. You are Eleanor. You are my friend. And you are so much more valuable than those people will ever be able to understand. We hung up. I sat on my bed, clutching the phone to my chest. I didn't understand what had just happened. I didn't understand why Catherine had reacted that way. I didn't understand why she wanted to go to the wedding. But for the first time in a long time, I felt something like hope. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed with a notification. A bank transfer. $1,000. From Catherine. I stared at the screen, unable to believe it. $1,000. Me, who barely had enough to eat some weeks. Me, who counted every penny. Suddenly, I had $1,000 in my account. The tears started falling again. But this time, they were different. They were tears of gratitude, of relief, of something I couldn't name. But that felt like justice, waiting for its moment. The following days were strange. I continued with my normal routine, feeding the chickens, watering the garden, cleaning my small house, but something inside me had changed. Every time I looked at my phone and saw my bank account balance, I couldn't believe it was real. $1,000. An amount that was small for many people, but for me, it represented months of my pension, months of surviving on the bare minimum. Michael sent me a text with the address for the Crestview Manor and some details about the wedding. His message was cold, emotionless. Just basic information. Mom, here's the address. The ceremony is at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Reception to follow. Regards. Not even an I love you or see you soon. Just that. As if I were just another obligation on his guest list. I immediately forwarded all the information to Catherine, just as she had asked. Her reply was quick. Perfect. Everything is going according to plan. Now go buy that dress, my friend. And remember, not a word to anyone. It took me 3 days to work up the courage to go downtown. 3 days in which I looked at the money in my account and felt guilty about spending it. I wasn't used to buying nice things for myself. My clothes came from the market, simple dresses that cost $10 or $15. The last time I had bought something new was 2 years ago. A pair of shoes because the heels on mine were completely worn down. But I finally went. I took the bus downtown and walked along the streets, looking at the shop windows. I felt out of place. The saleswomen looked at me with suspicion when I entered. They saw my humble clothes, my old handbag, my worn-out shoes, and assumed I was just browsing, that I couldn't afford anything. In the third store I visited, a young saleswoman asked me with a condescending tone, "Are you looking for something in particular, ma'am? Because our dresses are a bit pricey." I felt the blood rush to my cheeks. I was about to run out of there. But then I remembered Catherine's words. Walk with your head held high. I took a deep breath. I'm looking for an elegant dress for a wedding, I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. My budget is $500. The saleswoman's expression changed instantly. Her eyes widened with surprise, and then with interest. Oh, of course, ma'am. Let me show you our best options. She led me to a section of the store where the dresses looked like they were straight out of a magazine. There were all sorts of colors, with shimmering fabrics, elegant embroidery, and sophisticated cuts. I looked at them without daring to touch them. How could I, a 67-year-old countrywoman, wear something like this? What kind of wedding is it? The saleswoman asked as she pulled a few dresses from the racks. It's for my granddaughter's wedding, I replied. It's at the Crestview Manor. Oh, the Crestview Manor. It's a gorgeous place. Very elegant. Then you definitely need something special. She pulled out a pearl-colored dress with lace sleeves. What do you think of this one? It's perfect for the grandmother of the bride. Elegant but discreet. It costs $450. I tried it on in the dressing room. When I saw myself in the mirror, I almost didn't recognize myself. The dress fit me beautifully. The fabric fell softly over my thin body. The lace sleeves elegantly covered my wrinkled arms. I looked dignified. I looked like someone who deserved to be at that wedding. I'll take it, I said, before I could change my mind. But the saleswoman wasn't finished. And shoes? Do you have appropriate shoes to match? I looked down at my feet. My old, worn-out shoes. Of course I didn't have appropriate shoes. No, I admitted, ashamed. Don't worry. We have some beautiful ones that will be a perfect match. She showed me a pair of cream-colored shoes with a small but elegant heel. They're comfortable and look incredible. $120. In the end, I spent almost $600. The dress, the shoes, and I also bought a beige shawl because the saleswoman convinced me that the evenings at the manor could be cool. When I left the store with my bags, I felt dizzy. I had just spent more money on clothes than I had in the last 5 years combined. I called Catherine that night to tell her. "And how do you look?" she asked excitedly. "I don't know, Catherine. I look different. I look like someone I'm not." "No, my friend. You look like who you really are. A dignified, elegant woman who deserves respect. Now tell me, have you thought about your hair? And makeup?" "I don't know anything about those things, Catherine. I've never worn makeup. And my hair? Well, I just put it up in a bun like always. Listen, 2 days before the wedding, I want you to go to a salon. A good salon. Ask them to do your hair, give you a manicure, and do your makeup. Spend whatever is necessary. You still have $400 left. Use it." "Catherine, that's too much. I can't spend all your money on. It's an investment, Eleanor. An investment in your dignity. And believe me, it will be worth every penny. You trust me." "Yes, my friend. I trust you." The weeks passed slowly. Michael didn't call again. He didn't even text to ask if I had received the wedding information or if I had any questions. It was as if I were a task he had already completed and could forget about. That hurt more than Victoria's words. My son's silence was worse than my daughter-in-law's insults. Emily, my granddaughter, didn't contact me either. Not a single message asking if I was going, if I needed anything, if I was okay. Nothing. It was as if I were invisible to my entire family. I only existed when they needed to remind me how insignificant I was. But I kept going. Every morning I woke up and looked at the dress hanging in my closet. I had taken it out of the bag and hung it where I could see it. It was my reminder that something was changing. That on the day of the wedding, something was going to be different, even if I didn't understand exactly what. 2 days before the wedding, just as Catherine had instructed, I went to the best salon in town. I had never been in a place like it. The chairs were elegant, the mirrors were enormous, and there was a scent of expensive products that made me a little dizzy. The receptionist looked me up and down when I walked in. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked with that tone I knew so well. That tone that said, "I don't think you can afford our services." "No, but I need everything. Hair, manicure, makeup. It's for a wedding the day after tomorrow. Our services are quite expensive," she warned me. "The full package costs $250. I took out my bank card. That's no problem. They worked on me for 4 hours. They trimmed my gray hair, styling it in soft waves that fell over my shoulders. They gave me a manicure for the first time in my life. My country hands, those rough, hard-working hands, suddenly looked cared for, with my nails painted a soft shade. The makeup was the most surprising thing. The makeup artist worked carefully on my wrinkled face, using soft colors that concealed my dark circles and highlighted my eyes. When she showed me the final result in the mirror, I was speechless. "Is that me?" I asked in a trembling voice. The makeup artist smiled. "It's always been you, ma'am. You can just see yourself better now." That night, at home, I tried everything on together. The dress, the shoes, the hairstyle, the makeup. I stood in front of the old mirror in my bedroom and looked at myself for long minutes. The woman looking back at me was someone I didn't know. She was elegant. She was dignified. She was beautiful in her own way. But underneath it all, I was still me. Eleanor, the country woman, the widow, the rejected mother. The pretty dress didn't change that. The makeup didn't erase the pain. I took a picture in the mirror and sent it to Catherine. Her reply came in seconds. "You look perfect, my friend. Absolutely perfect. Tomorrow is the big day. Remember, get to the chapel at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, just as they told you. I'll arrive a little later. Don't worry about a thing. Everything is going to be fine, better than you can imagine." I didn't sleep that night either. I spent it staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that could go wrong. What if Victoria humiliated me again in front of everyone? What if Michael didn't even say hello to me? What if the guests laughed at me despite the pretty dress? An expensive dress didn't change who I really was. But there was something else. There was a small spark of hope in my chest. Catherine had promised that everything would be okay, and I trusted her. I didn't know why or how, but I trusted her. The day of the wedding arrived with a clear sky and a bright sun that seemed to mock my nerves. I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, even though the ceremony wasn't until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I couldn't eat breakfast. My stomach was in a knot. I only had some chamomile tea to calm the nerves that were eating me alive. I showered carefully, trying not to ruin the hairstyle they had done the day before. I put lotion on my whole body, something I rarely did. I wanted to smell nice. I wanted it so that if Victoria got close to me, she couldn't say anything about a farm smell. I put on a perfume I had bought at the market years ago and saved for special occasions that never came. Until today. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I began to get dressed. I put on the dress with trembling hands. The new shoes were a little tight, but they looked good on me. I did my makeup following the instructions the makeup artist had given me. Soft eyeliner, a little blush, a pale pink lipstick. Nothing exaggerated, elegant and discreet. When I was finished, I looked in the mirror one last time. The transformation was undeniable. But my heart was still the same frightened heart of a woman about to face her own family, a family that despised her. I called a taxi because I didn't want to arrive by bus, not after all this effort. The driver looked surprised when I came out of my humble house dressed like that. He didn't say anything, but I saw the question in his eyes. What was a woman who lived in a house like this doing dressed in that way? To the Crestview Manor, please, I told him, trying to sound confident. The drive took 40 minutes. With every mile we covered, my anxiety grew. I looked out the window at the passing fields, the mountains in the distance, the infinite sky. Everything so beautiful, and me so terrified. When the taxi stopped in front of the enormous gates of the Crestview Manor, I thought my heart was going to beat out of my chest. The place was breathtaking. A stone driveway lined with gigantic trees led to a beautiful colonial-style building. Perfectly manicured gardens, water fountains, vibrant flowers everywhere. It was like something out of a movie. I paid the taxi and walked slowly toward the entrance. Other guests were arriving in luxury cars. Women in expensive dresses and sparkling jewelry, men in impeccable suits. They all looked like they belonged in that world. And I felt like an imposter. The manor's chapel was small but beautiful, all white with stained glass windows that cast lovely colored lights on the wooden pews. There were already quite a few people seated. I recognized some of Victoria's relatives. Rich, elegant people, talking about business and international travel. People who had never said a word to me on the few occasions we had met. I looked around for Michael or Emily, but I didn't see them. They must have been in some preparation room. I walked slowly down the center aisle, looking for a place to sit. The front pews were reserved for family, but I didn't know if I was allowed to sit there. No one had told me anything. No one had explained anything. I sat in one of the middle pews, on the groom's side, because I didn't want to cause trouble by sitting on Michael's side. An elderly woman next to me looked me up and down, and then turned to speak to her companion. I heard them whispering, but I couldn't make out the words. More guests arrived. The chapel gradually filled up. Soft music began to play. A string quartet was playing classical pieces I didn't know, but they sounded beautiful. Everything was perfect, everything was elegant, and I still felt completely out of place despite my new dress. Then I saw him. Michael came in through a side door. He was wearing an impeccable black suit, a silver tie, and shiny shoes. He looked handsome, successful, important. He looked like someone who had left his humble origins far behind. He looked like someone who was ashamed of his country mother. Our eyes met for a second, just 1 second. I saw surprise on his face when he saw me like this, so dressed up. But he didn't come over to me. He didn't greet me. He just gave a slight nod and went to sit in the front pew next to other relatives. That hurt more than all of Victoria's words put together. My own son, my only son, the child I carried in my womb, nursed at my breast, raised with all my love, didn't even come to say hello. He didn't even say, "You look beautiful, Mom," or "Thank you for coming." Nothing. The tears started to sting my eyes, but I couldn't cry. I couldn't ruin my makeup. I couldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break down. I took a deep breath. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then she appeared. Victoria. She entered through the same door as Michael, looking spectacular in a long, champagne-colored dress with gold embroidery. Her hair was up in an elaborate style, and expensive jewelry sparkled at her neck and ears. She looked like the queen of the place, as if everything belonged to her. Her eyes scanned the chapel until they found me. I saw them widen with surprise when she saw me. She went over to Michael and whispered something in his ear. He turned to look at me again. Victoria said something else, and they both laughed. That laugh, that damned laugh that haunted me at night. Victoria walked down the aisle, greeting guests with fake smiles and superficial hugs. When she passed by my pew, she stopped. She leaned down and spoke to me in a low voice, just low enough for only me to hear. Well, Eleanor, you cleaned up. What a surprise. Though I must say the dress looks a bit cheap. Don't you think? You can tell it's from some store in town. But hey, you did your best. That's what counts." And then, with that venomous smile, she added, "I just ask you for one favor. Please don't talk too much with the guests. I don't want them to know what you are. Well, you know, the country grandmother." She walked away before I could answer. Not that I had anything to answer. The words were stuck in my throat like stones. I sat there, feeling miserable. All the money spent, all the effort, it had all been for nothing. To Victoria, I was still trash. And the worst part was, she was right. I didn't belong in this world. I was never going to belong. The music changed. It was time for the bride to enter. Everyone stood up. The main doors of the chapel opened, and there was Emily, my granddaughter. She looked absolutely beautiful in her white dress, with a bouquet of flowers in her hands and a radiant smile on her face. I should have felt joy. I should have felt pride. But I only felt pain. Pain because when her eyes scanned the guests, they passed over me as if I were invisible, as if it didn't matter that her grandmother was there, witnessing one of the most important days of her life. Emily walked down the aisle on Michael's arm to the altar, where Alexander was waiting for her. The ceremony began. The priest spoke about love, about family, about the union of two people, pretty words that sounded hollow in my ears. I could only think about Catherine. Where was she? She had said she would come. She had said everything would be okay. But the ceremony was progressing, and she hadn't appeared. Had she lied to me? Was it just a way to make me feel better temporarily? The ceremony ended. Emily and Alexander kissed to applause. Everyone was smiling. Everyone was celebrating. I clapped too, my hands trembling, feeling more alone than ever in the middle of that crowd. The bride and groom left the chapel, followed by their families. The guests began to leave as well, heading toward the gardens where the reception would be. I stayed seated for another moment, trying to gather the strength to face what was coming. The reception. Hours of fake smiles, of feeling ignored, of being the shame of my family. I finally stood up and left the chapel. The afternoon sun blinded me for a moment. When my eyes adjusted, I saw the gardens transformed into a paradise. Tables with white tablecloths, enormous floral arrangements, a dance floor, a live band, waiters with trays of champagne glasses. Everything perfect, everything expensive, everything alien. I walked slowly toward the gardens where the reception was already taking shape. The tables were decorated with huge centerpieces of flowers, white roses and lilies that perfumed the air. Each table had fine china, crystal glasses, and silver cutlery that gleamed in the afternoon sunday. Waiters circulated with trays of canapés and glasses of champagne. It was all a dream, all unattainable for someone like me. I looked for the table where I had been assigned. I found my name on a small card on one of the tables in the back. Of course, the table farthest from the center, the table where they had put the least important guests. Sitting with me were some distant cousins of Michael's whom I hadn't seen in years, and who barely greeted me with a nod. From my seat, I could see the main table where Emily and Alexander were, surrounded by their parents and the bridal party. Michael was there, smiling, making toasts, looking like the proud father. Victoria was by his side, radiant, talking animatedly with the other guests at the table. It was the perfect picture of a successful family, and I was the dirty secret they preferred to keep hidden in the back. The waiters began to serve the food, an appetizer, a main course, dessert. Everything exquisite, everything presented artistically on the plates. I barely took a bite. The food got stuck in my throat. Every time I looked at the main table and saw my son laughing with his wife, every time I saw Emily happy without even glancing my way, something inside me broke a little more. Where was Catherine? It had been over 2 hours since I arrived. The ceremony was over, we were in the middle of the reception, and she hadn't shown up. I discreetly took out my phone under the table and sent her a message. "Catherine, where are you? I'm here and I don't know what to do." The reply took a few minutes, but it finally came. "Patience, my friend. I'm almost there. Everything is going according to plan. Trust me. What plan?" I didn't understand anything, but I had no choice but to wait. The music started to get louder. The band was playing romantic songs. Emily and Alexander opened the dance floor with their first waltz as husband and wife. Everyone watched them, captivated. Then they invited their parents to dance. Michael asked Victoria to dance. They looked happy, still in love after all these years. A part of me, the foolish part that still loved my son despite everything, felt happy to see him like that. But another part, the wounded part, only felt bitterness. More people joined the dance floor. Laughter filled the air. The champagne flowed endlessly. It was a beautiful party, a perfect celebration. and I was just a shadow in the corner, invisible and insignificant. Then something happened that caught my attention. One of the waiters approached Joaquin, the owner of the manor. I had seen Joaquin at the beginning of the ceremony, greeting some important guests. He was an older, elegant man with gray hair and a distinguished air. The waiter whispered something in his ear. Joaquin nodded and quickly headed toward the main entrance of the gardens. There was a sort of commotion near the entrance. Some guests turned to look. Murmurs began to spread. Something was happening, and then I saw her. Catherine. But it wasn't the Catherine I remembered from our youth. It wasn't even the Catherine from the photos I occasionally saw on her social media. This was a completely transformed version of my friend. She entered the gardens like a celebrity. She was wearing a long, emerald green dress that flowed with every step, fitted in all the right places, elegant to an extreme. Her hair, once dark brown like mine, now had perfectly done blonde highlights and fell in soft waves over her shoulders. She wore jewelry that I could tell, even from a distance, was real. A pearl necklace, diamond earrings, bracelets that caught the sunlight, and high-heeled shoes that made her walk with an imposing presence. But the most impressive thing wasn't her physical appearance. It was the way she walked, the way she held her head high, the absolute confidence in every movement. She walked like someone who knew exactly who she was and what she was worth. She walked like she owned the world. Joaquin approached her immediately, and what I saw next took my breath away. He greeted her with a kiss on each cheek, not a cordial greeting, a greeting of true affection and respect. He offered her his arm, and they began to walk together into the gardens. All the guests had stopped to stare. The music was still playing, but many people had stopped dancing to watch the new arrival. Who was this woman? Why was Joaquin, the owner of this exclusive place, treating her with such deference? I saw Victoria pull away from Michael on the dance floor. Her expression had changed. She was no longer the confident, arrogant woman from a moment ago. Now there was confusion on her face. And something else? Nervousness, perhaps? Michael was also looking toward the entrance with a frown. Emily and Alexander had stopped dancing and were watching the scene, along with everyone else. Joaquin and Catherine walked to the center of the gardens. He signaled to the band leader, and the music stopped. The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone was watching. Everyone was waiting. "Excuse the interruption," Joaquin said in a powerful voice that reached every corner of the garden. "But I have the honor of introducing a very special guest, someone who could not miss this celebration. My dear friend and business partner, Mrs. Catherine Romero." There were murmurs among the guests. Some seemed to recognize the name. I saw several businessmen among the guests exchange surprised looks. Catherine smiled and took the floor. Her voice was clear, confident, full of natural authority. "Thank you, Joaquin, and my apologies for arriving late to this beautiful celebration. I had some last-minute business to attend to in the city, but I couldn't miss such a special day." Her eyes scanned the guests until they found me. She smiled at me, a warm smile that went straight to my heart. I couldn't miss the wedding day of my best friend's granddaughter. The entire garden seemed to hold its breath. I saw Victoria's face go pale. I saw Michael's eyes widen in surprise. I saw Emily look confusedly at her parents, searching for an explanation. Catherine walked directly toward my table. Toward the back, toward the place where they had relegated me as if I were invisible. All eyes followed us. Every step she took echoed in the absolute silence that had settled over the garden. When she reached me, she extended her hands. I stood up, trembling, not fully understanding what was happening. She took my hands in hers and kissed me on both cheeks. "Eleanor, my dear friend, my soul sister. How long has it been since I've seen you like this, face to face?" "Catherine," was all I could say. My voice came out as a broken whisper. She turned to the guests, still holding my hand. "Let me tell you about this extraordinary woman. Eleanor and I grew up together in the country. We were just two poor girls with big dreams. She stayed in our town, got married, had a son, and worked herself to the bone to give him a better life. I went to the city. I chased other dreams. Life separated us physically, but never in our hearts." I saw some guests nod politely, but others, especially those on Victoria's side, looked on with disdain, as if to say, "And why should we care about the story of two country girls?" But Catherine wasn't finished. A few weeks ago, my friend called me crying. She told me something that broke my heart. She told me how her own family had humiliated her, how they had called her a countrywoman with contempt, as if being from the country was something to be ashamed of, how they told her to come to this wedding cleaned up, implying that she smelled bad because of her honest work. The murmurs intensified. Some people turned to look at Victoria. She was as red as a tomato. Michael looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. And you know what I thought when I heard that? Catherine continued, her voice rising slightly. I thought about all the times I was also looked down upon for my origins. I thought about all the times someone made me feel inferior for coming from the country. And I thought it was time some people learned a very important lesson. Catherine gently let go of my hand and took a few steps toward the center of the garden. All eyes followed her every move. The tension in the air was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I remained standing by my table, trembling, not knowing what was going to happen next. You see, Catherine continued with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, I'm a countrywoman too. I was born into a family that had nothing. Absolutely nothing. My father worked the land from sunup to sundown for a few dollars a day. My mother washed other people's clothes so we could eat. I grew up barefoot, in mended dresses, never knowing if there would be food on the table that day. There was an uncomfortable silence. Some guests looked at the floor. Others exchanged confused glances. Victoria seemed petrified, her mouth slightly open but unable to say a word. But you know what's beautiful about coming from the country? About coming from poverty? It teaches you the real value of things. It teaches you that dignity can't be bought with money. That respect doesn't come from the size of your bank account. That true elegance has nothing to do with expensive clothes or sparkling jewelry. Catherine turned to Joaquin, who was still standing beside her with a serious but attentive expression. Joaquin, could you please tell these distinguished guests who I am exactly? Because I think some people here need some context. Joaquin nodded and stepped forward. With pleasure, Catherine. Mrs. Catherine Romero is the founder and CEO of Crestwood Textiles, one of the largest textile companies in the region. Her products are exported to 15 countries. Last year, her company generated over $50 million in revenue. She is also an investor in several properties, including this very manor of which I am the owner. Catherine is a minority partner here, and more importantly than all of that, she is one of the most respected women in the business circles of this region. The murmurs exploded. I saw several of the businessmen among the guests look at each other in shock. Some even seemed embarrassed not to have recognized her earlier. Victoria had turned as white as a sheet. Michael's jaw was hanging open, completely stunned. $50 million, Catherine repeated, letting the words hang in the air. But you know what? That doesn't make me better than Eleanor, nor better than any farmer who honestly works the land. Money is just money, numbers in a bank account. What really defines us is how we treat others. It's the compassion we show. It's the respect we give even to those we consider beneath us. She turned and looked directly at me. Her eyes were shining with unshed tears. Eleanor could have gone to the city like I did. She could have chased money, success, recognition. But she chose to stay. She chose to raise her son with love and sacrifice. She chose to work every day until her bones ached so that son could have an education, opportunities, a better life than her own. She turned toward where Michael was standing, his head now bowed, unable to meet her gaze. And that son, that man standing there in his expensive suit, that man who looks so successful and respectable today, exists because of that woman, because of her country hands, because of her sweat, because of her unconditional love. Every achievement he's had, every success he's reached, is built on his mother's sacrifice. Michael looked up. His eyes were red. I saw him swallow hard. But instead of honoring her, Catherine continued, her voice harsher. Instead of proudly introducing her as the extraordinary woman she is, they hide her at a table in the back. They treat her like an embarrassment. They allow her to be humiliated and say nothing. Victoria finally found her voice, though it sounded shrill and defensive. You don't understand. You don't know how things are. We have a social standing to maintain. We have friends, important connections. People who what? Catherine interrupted, raising an eyebrow. People who will judge you for having a country mother? And those are the people you want to associate with? People so superficial, so empty, so devoid of real values? She took a few steps toward Victoria, who instinctively stepped back. Let me tell you something, Mrs. Victoria. I move in high-level business circles. I have dinner with governors, with owners of international corporations, with people who manage millions and millions of dollars. And you know what truly successful people, the ones who have built empires from scratch, have in common? Respect. Respect for their roots. Respect for those who help them get where they are. It's the people with new money, the ones who are ashamed of their past, who always end up being the most despised in any truly important social circle. Victoria opened her mouth to reply, but no words came out. She was completely disarmed. Catherine turned back to all the guests. Eleanor doesn't need my money to have value. She doesn't need my connections to be important. She doesn't need my validation to be worthy of respect. She has always been all of those things. I am just here to make sure you all see it, to make sure her own family sees it. She walked back to me and took my hand again. And now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to sit with my friend. I'm going to enjoy this beautiful reception with the most valuable woman in this place. Joaquin immediately signaled to the waiters. In seconds, they brought an elegant chair and placed it next to mine. Catherine sat beside me and squeezed my hand tightly. I couldn't speak. Tears were streaming down my face, ruining the makeup I had so carefully applied. But I didn't care. For the first time in so long, they weren't tears of humiliation or pain. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of validation. The band started playing again, trying to break the tension that lingered in the air. Some guests slowly returned to their conversations, though everyone kept glancing toward our table, toward Catherine and me. I saw several of the businessmen who were among the guests approach our table. They wanted to greet Catherine, exchange business cards, talk about business, and she received them kindly, but always made sure to introduce me. Let me introduce you to my best friend, Eleanor, an extraordinary woman. And these businessmen in their expensive suits and luxury watches, shook my hand with respect. They smiled at me. They treated me as if I mattered, all because Catherine had established that I was important to her. It was painful and beautiful at the same time. Painful because it took someone with money and power to validate my existence for others to see me. Beautiful because finally, after so long, someone had fought for me. I looked toward the main table. Emily was looking at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Was it guilt? Was it shame? Michael kept his eyes fixed on his plate. Victoria had disappeared, probably hiding in a bathroom crying from humiliation. Catherine leaned toward me and whispered in my ear, "Are you okay, my friend?" I nodded, wiping my tears with a napkin. "Thank you," was all I could say. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for this. Thank you for everything. Don't thank me. This is just the beginning. We're not finished yet." I looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" She smiled. A mysterious smile that made me feel like something more was coming. "You'll see, Eleanor. You'll see." The reception continued, but everything had changed. The once carefree and celebratory atmosphere was now charged with tension and whispers. The guests formed small groups, clearly talking about what had just happened. Some looked at our table with curiosity, others with admiration. A few with disdain, probably Victoria's closest friends who thought Catherine had been too harsh. I remained seated next to Catherine, still processing everything that had happened. It was like I was living a dream. A strange dream where, for the first time in years, someone had stood up for me. Someone had said out loud all the things I had never dared to say. The waiters brought food for Catherine. She ate naturally, chatting with me about trivial things as if she hadn't just caused a revolution at this wedding. She asked about my life, about my house, about my garden. She spoke with genuine interest, making me feel that my small-town stories mattered as much as her big business stories. "Are you still growing those huge tomatoes?" she asked with a smile. "I remember your mother had the best secret to make them grow so big." "Yes," I replied, feeling a little warmth in my chest, talking about something familiar. "I still use her technique. Coffee grounds mixed with the soil. It works wonders. You have to send me some. The tomatoes from the supermarket taste like nothing compared to the ones from the country. It was such a normal, simple conversation. But in that context, surrounded by luxury and tension, that normality was a balm for my wounded soul. Then I saw movement at the main table. Michael had stood up. He was walking toward us. My heart started to beat faster. What was he going to say? Was he going to defend Victoria? Was he going to ask Catherine to leave? Was he going to yell at me for ruining his daughter's wedding? He reached our table and just stood there, his hands in his pockets, looking at the ground. He looked like a scolded child, not the successful 42-year-old man he was. "Mom," he said finally, his voice hoarse. I need to talk to you." Catherine stood up immediately. "I'll leave you two alone," she said, squeezing my shoulder affectionately. "I'm going to say hello to Joaquin and some acquaintances. Take your time, Eleanor." She walked away with that elegance that now seemed natural to her, leaving me alone with my son. Michael took the chair Catherine had vacated and sat down. He wouldn't look me in the eye. His hands were clasped on the table, his knuckles white from the pressure. "I don't know what to say," he began. "I don't even know where to start." I didn't know what to say either. So I stayed silent, waiting. When Catherine was speaking up there, when she said all those things, his voice broke. "I realized how horrible we've been to you. How horrible I've been." Tears began to stream down his face. My son, my boy, was crying. "You sacrificed everything for me, Mom. Everything. And I knew it. I always knew it. I knew you worked late to pay for my school. I knew you sometimes didn't eat so I would have food. I knew you mended your old clothes while buying me new uniforms." I reached out my hand and placed it on his. He squeezed it as if it were a lifeline. But when I met Victoria, when I entered her world of money and social status, I started to feel ashamed. I was ashamed of our humble little house. I was ashamed that you arrived on the bus when her friends' parents arrived in new cars. I was ashamed of your hard-working hands when her friends' mothers had soft, manicured hands. Every word was a knife in my heart. But it was also the truth. The truth I had always known but that no one had ever spoken aloud. And instead of defending you, instead of defending myself and my roots, I let myself get carried away. I let Victoria treat you badly. I let her humiliate you. And the worst part is, I participated. I laughed when she made fun of you. I stayed silent when I should have screamed. I pushed you out of my life because you were a reminder of what I wanted to forget. He was sobbing now, a deep cry that shook his whole body. "Forgive me. Mom, please, forgive me. I know I don't deserve it. I know I've been the worst son in the world, but I love you. I've always loved you. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I looked at him through my own tears. I saw the boy he had been. The boy who hugged me when he was afraid of thunderstorms. The boy who brought me flowers from the field. The boy who told me that when he grew up, he would buy me a big house where I would never have to work again. What is a mother supposed to do in this moment? Is she supposed to forgive immediately? Or is she supposed to maintain her dignity and make her son suffer for his mistakes? "Michael," I said finally, my voice trembling, "you hurt me very much. You and Victoria. You made me feel like trash, as if all my sacrifice had been for nothing. I know, Mom. I know, and I have no excuse. But I also know that life changed you, that money and status blinded you. And I know that somewhere, deep inside you, the boy I raised is still there. The good boy I know." He looked up to finally meet my eyes. They were red and swollen. "I don't know if I can forgive you right now," I continued. "I don't know if I can forget all the pain with just this one conversation, but you are my son. And a mother never stops loving her son, no matter how much they hurt her." "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "Probably not. But love isn't about deserving. It's about giving without expecting anything in return. I gave you everything without expecting this. And now I'm giving you the chance to be better, to change, to become the man I always knew you could be." He got up from his chair and knelt beside mine. He hugged me like he hadn't hugged me since he was a boy, tightly, desperately, as if I were his anchor in the middle of a storm. "I'm going to change, Mom. I promise you, I'm going to make things right. I'm going to talk to Victoria. I'm going to talk to Emily. They're going to respect you as you deserve, or I'll have to make some difficult decisions." I didn't know what he meant by that last part, but I nodded against his shoulder. We stayed like that for several minutes, mother and son, reunited after so much emotional distance. It wasn't a complete reconciliation. The damage was too deep for that, but it was a start. When he finally pulled away, his face was completely red. He wiped his tears with the sleeve of his expensive suit. "I should get back to the guests," he said. "But after the wedding, can we talk more? Can I come visit you at your house? Can we try to rebuild this?" "Yes," I replied simply. "We can try." He stood up and kissed me on the forehead, the way he used to as a teenager before leaving for school. Then he walked back toward the main table, his shoulders slumped, but with something lighter in his step. Catherine returned a few minutes later. "How did it go?" she asked, sitting down next to me again. "Difficult, painful, but necessary," I replied. "I think it's the beginning of something. I don't know what exactly, but something. I'm glad, my friend. I'm so glad." I looked toward the main table. Michael was talking to Victoria. I could see it was a tense conversation. She was gesturing with her hands, clearly upset. He maintained a firm stance, speaking seriously. It was the first time I had ever seen him stand up to her. "You said this was just the beginning," I reminded Catherine. "What did you mean?" She smiled with that same mysterious smile from before. "The official toast is still to come. And Joaquin asked me to say a few words. After all, I'm a partner in this place, and a special guest." My stomach churned. "Catherine, you've done enough. I don't want any more trouble. I don't want to completely ruin Emily's wedding. I'm not going to ruin anything, I promise. I'm just going to end things with a grand finale. Trust me one last time." And so it was that, 20 minutes later, when it was time for the official toasts, Joaquin took the microphone and asked for silence from all the guests. "Distinguished guests," Joaquin began, his powerful, clear voice filling the entire garden. "Before we continue with the traditional toasts from the parents and bridal party, I have the honor of turning the microphone over to someone very special. A woman I admire deeply, not just for her business success, but for her quality as a human being, Mrs. Catherine Romero." The applause was polite but enthusiastic, especially from the businessmen who had recognized her. Catherine rose from our table with an elegance that seemed to emanate from every pore of her skin. She walked to where Joaquin was, took the microphone, and smiled at everyone present. My heart was pounding. I didn't know what she was going to say. Part of me was terrified she would cause more drama. Another part was curious, even excited. "Good evening, everyone," Catherine began. "First of all, I want to congratulate the bride and groom, Emily, Alexander. I wish you a life full of love, understanding, and mutual respect. May you build a solid marriage based on real values, not on appearances." There was an uncomfortable silence. Those last words clearly had a deeper meaning. "I know my arrival caused a bit of tension," she continued, with an ironic smile. "And I know some people here probably think I was too harsh, that I ruined the celebratory atmosphere. But let me explain why I did what I did." Everyone was completely silent, hanging on her every word. 30 years ago, when I came to the city looking for opportunities, I had nothing. I arrived with a mended dress, $20 in my pocket, and a heart full of dreams. I got a job as a cleaner in a textile factory. I earned $150 a month. I slept in a room shared with 5 other women. I ate once a day so I could save money. I could see she had everyone's complete attention. Even the waiters had stopped to listen. The owners of that factory treated me like dirt. They yelled at me. They humiliated me in front of other employees. They paid me late. Once, the owner's son told me I smelled like poverty, that I should shower better before coming to work. My heart ached. Those words were too similar to what Victoria had said to me. I cried every night. I wondered if I had made a mistake leaving my town, if I should go back, defeated. But then I remembered why I had come. I remembered that I wanted to prove that a girl from the country could achieve something great, that my origin didn't define my destiny. She paused. She took a sip of water from a glass Joaquin had brought her. I worked at that factory for 5 years. I learned everything about textiles, how the machinery worked, how to handle suppliers, how the designs were made. I took notes in an old notebook during my breaks. I saved every penny I could. And after 5 years, I quit. She smiled at the memory. The owner laughed when I told him I was going to start my own business. He told me that a country woman with no formal education would never make it, that I would be back in a month, begging for my job back. You know what happened? The guests were completely absorbed in her story. I opened a small workshop with 2 used sewing machines I bought with my savings. I worked 18 hours a day. I slept for 3 hours on some boxes in the same workshop. I ate bread and coffee. But my products were good, very good, because I had learned well, and because I put love into every piece. Catherine walked a little on the makeshift stage, her heels echoing in the silence. In 2 years, I had 10 employees. In 5 years, 50. In 10 years, 200. Today, Crestwood Textiles employs over 1,000 people. People who, like me, come from small towns. People who need a chance. People whom society has labeled as inferior because of their origin. Several guests began to nod. The story was powerful, inspiring. But you know what's most interesting? Catherine continued. 5 years ago, that factory where I worked as a cleaner was bankrupt. The arrogant son, who had humiliated me, came to my office to ask me to buy it, to save the family business. And when he walked in and saw me sitting behind that executive desk, when he realized who I was, his face turned the color of this white tablecloth. There was some nervous laughter among the guests. Do you know what I did? I bought the factory. I completely restructured it. I fired all the abusive management. I implemented policies of respect and dignity for all employees. And that factory is now one of my most productive. Why am I telling you this? She turned and looked directly at me. Her eyes were shining with contained emotion. Because I want everyone to understand something very important. Respect is not earned with money. It's not earned with important last names or powerful connections. Respect is earned through actions, through dignity, through the way we treat others, especially those we consider beneath us. She walked to where the main table was. She stopped in front of Emily, who was watching her with wide eyes. Emily, today is your special day. The most important day of your life so far. And I want to give you a gift, not a material gift, a gift of wisdom. Emily nodded slowly, clearly not knowing what to expect. Your grandmother, that woman sitting over there in the back, is the most valuable treasure you have. She is the reason your father was able to go to college. She is the reason your father was able to meet your mother. She is the reason you exist. Every comfort you've had, every opportunity you've received is built on that woman's sacrifice. I saw Emily begin to cry, silent tears that ran down her perfect makeup. And if you allow anyone, even your own mother, to teach you to despise your grandmother for being humble, for being from the country, for not having money, then you are building your life on false foundations. Foundations that will sooner or later crumble. Catherine turned to Victoria, who was rigid in her chair, her jaw tight. Mrs. Victoria, I don't know you. I don't know what kind of person you are beyond what Eleanor told me. But I want to tell you something. True luxury is not expensive dresses or sparkling jewelry. True luxury is having a family that loves you unconditionally. A family that would be there even if you lost everything. And you had that. You had a mother-in-law who loved you despite how you treated her, who cooked for your family, who took care of your daughter when necessary, and instead of valuing her, you humiliated her. Victoria opened her mouth as if to respond, but Catherine held up a hand. Don't say anything, just listen, because this isn't just for you. It's for everyone here, for everyone who has ever looked down on someone for being poor, for coming from the country, for not having a formal education, for not dressing the way you dress or speaking the way you speak. Her voice had grown louder, more passionate. Human dignity is priceless. It cannot be bought or sold. Everyone in this garden, absolutely everyone, came into the world the same way, naked, vulnerable, needy, and we are all going to leave the world the same way. No matter how much money we have in the bank, no matter what car we drive, no matter what neighborhood we live in." She paused dramatically. "The only thing that remains at the end is the love we gave and the love we received, the respect we showed, the kindness we shared. And I assure you that when you are on your deathbed, you won't remember the money you had. You will remember if you were good to the people who loved you, if you honored those who raised you, if you lived with real dignity, not bought dignity." She returned to the center of the garden and raised her champagne glass. "So I want to make a toast, not just to the bride and groom, but to all the Eleanors of the world, to all the country mothers who work themselves to the bone for their children, to all the humble people who make it possible for others to live comfortably, to the farmers who grow our food, to the domestic workers who clean our houses, to the laborers who build these beautiful places where we celebrate." Several guests raised their glasses, some with tears in their eyes. "And especially, I want to toast my friend Eleanor, to the most dignified, hard-working, loving woman I know, a woman who deserves all the respect in the world, a woman who today should be sitting at the main table, not relegated to the back as if she were an embarrassment." Catherine looked directly at me. "To you, my friend, to your unbreakable dignity, to your unconditional love, to being an example of what it means to be truly rich, rich in values, in love, in sacrifice. To Eleanor," someone shouted from the crowd. And then, one by one, more voices joined in. "To Eleanor, to Eleanor." The entire garden echoed with my name. "To Eleanor, to Eleanor." The voices blended into a chorus I never imagined I would hear. People who didn't even know me were raising their glasses to me. To me. A 67-year-old country woman who had spent her whole life feeling invisible. The tears streamed freely down my face. I no longer cared about my ruined makeup. I no longer cared about anything except that moment when finally, after so long, someone saw me. Many people saw me. Catherine walked to my table, still holding her glass high. All the guests remained standing, their glasses raised, waiting. She extended her hand to me. "Stand up, my friend. This is your moment." I shook my head, too overwhelmed, too ashamed to be the center of attention. "Stand up," she insisted with that gentle authority that allowed no refusal. "Let them see you. Let them know who you are." With trembling legs, I stood up. The entire garden erupted in applause. Loud, sincere applause that resonated in my chest. Some people were approaching our table with their glasses, wanting to toast me personally. People who had previously ignored me were now smiling at me warmly. But my gaze went to the main table, to my family. Emily had risen from her chair. Her white dress shone under the lights that were beginning to turn on now that the sun was setting. She walked toward me, slowly at first, then faster. When she reached me, she was crying uncontrollably. "Grandma," she said in a broken voice. "Grandma, forgive me. Forgive me, please." She threw herself into my arms like she did when she was a little girl, like when she would come running from kindergarten and I would welcome her with open arms, even though Victoria would glare at me for hugging her daughter with my country hands. "I didn't know," she sobbed against my shoulder. "I didn't know everything you did for Dad. I didn't know everything you sacrificed. Mom always talked about you as if you were. As if you weren't important." And I believed her. "Oh my God, Grandma, I treated you so badly. I didn't personally invite you to my wedding. I didn't visit you. I didn't call you. And you were always so good to me when I was little." I stroked her hair, the hair I had combed so many times when she was a child. "Shh, my love. It's over now. It's over." "No, it's not over. I was horrible to you. I put you at a table in the back, like you were just anyone. Like you weren't my grandmother, like you weren't important to me." She pulled back to look me in the eyes. Her face was swollen from crying, her makeup smeared, but I had never seen her look more beautiful. "I want you to know that I love you, that I have always loved you, and that from today on, things are going to change. I'm going to visit you. I'm going to call you. I'm going to introduce you to Alexander, properly, and I'm going to learn from you. I'm going to learn everything Mom never taught me about dignity and real values." I hugged her tightly as my old arms would allow. Alexander, the groom, had approached as well. He looked uncomfortable but sincere. Mrs. Eleanor, he said respectfully, I'm sorry we didn't get to meet before. I'm sorry you had to go through this. Emily has told me a lot about you lately, about her childhood memories, and I always wanted to meet you. I hope we can start over. I extended my hand, and he shook it firmly. A good boy, I thought, a boy who treats my granddaughter with respect. Then I saw Victoria. She was still sitting at the main table, but something had changed in her. She was no longer the arrogant, confident woman from before. She looked small, defeated, lost. Michael was speaking to her in a low voice, clearly discussing something with her. Finally, she stood up. She walked toward us with slow, uncertain steps. She stopped a few feet away, not daring to come closer. Eleanor, she said, her voice barely audible. Her eyes were red but dry, as if she had cried so much she had no tears left. I don't know how to apologize. I don't know if there are enough words. I remained silent, waiting. I have been cruel to you, unfair. I've said unforgivable things. I have allowed my pride, my obsession with social status, to turn me into a horrible person. She bit her lip, clearly struggling with every word. I grew up in a wealthy family. I always had everything, and somehow that made me believe I was better than others, especially better than humble people. She took another step closer. But today, listening to your friend, seeing everyone's reaction, finally understanding what you did for Michael, I realized something terrible. I realized that I am the poor one. Poor in spirit, poor in values, poor in humanity. A single tear ran down her cheek. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect us to forget what I did. I just want you to know that I'm sorry, that I'm going to work on being better, that I'm going to teach Emily what I should have taught her from the beginning, that dignity comes from the inside, not the outside. I looked at this woman who had caused me so much pain, this woman who had made me cry so many nights, this woman who had nearly destroyed my relationship with my son, and I felt something unexpected. Pity. Pity because her perfect world had crumbled in one afternoon. Pity because she had lived so long in her bubble of superficiality that she had never known the real wealth of unconditional love and genuine respect. Victoria, I said finally, I can't tell you that I forgive you right now. Forgiveness doesn't work like that. Forgiveness takes time. It takes consistent actions, not just pretty words said in a moment of humiliation. She nodded, accepting, but I can tell you this. I am willing to give you the opportunity to show that you really want to change, that this isn't just because you were embarrassed in front of everyone, that it's real. It is, she said quickly. I promise you, it is. Then prove it, not with words. With actions. Visit me. Talk to me. Bring Emily to me. Allow me to be part of this family as I always should have been. And with time, maybe, we can build something better. Michael came over and put his arm around Victoria. She leaned on him, clearly emotionally exhausted. Thank you, Mom, Michael said. Thank you for being a better person than we are. Thank you for giving us a chance we don't deserve. Catherine, who had watched everything from a respectful distance, approached again. Well, she said with a smile, I think my work here is done. I'll leave you with your family, Eleanor. This is your moment. Catherine, wait. I stopped her. I don't know how to thank you. I can never repay you for what you did for me today. She took my hands in hers. My friend, you don't have to repay me anything. This wasn't charity. This was justice. This was honoring our friendship. This was reminding myself where I come from and why I must never forget it. We hugged tightly, two country women who had taken different paths but were still soul sisters. Besides, she whispered in my ear, you saved my life once, remember? I looked at her, confused. When we were 12, I was drowning in the river. You jumped in and pulled me out. Your mom scolded both of us, but you saved me. I never forgot that, Eleanor. Never. And today, I was just returning the favor. She kissed me on the forehead and walked away to where Joaquin was waiting for her. I watched them leave together, two successful people who had not forgotten their roots. The rest of the reception was different, completely different. I was no longer relegated to the back. Emily insisted that I sit at the main table. Guests came up to introduce themselves, to talk to me, to listen to my stories. They treated me with genuine respect, not just because Catherine had demanded it, but because they finally saw me as a valuable human being. I danced with Michael. My son asked me to dance for the first time in years. I felt his sincere love. He whispered apologies between clumsy steps. He promised to be better, and I chose to believe him. Emily introduced me to all her friends as my wonderful grandmother. Not my grandmother or simply Eleanor, my wonderful grandmother. And every time she said it, my heart healed a little more. When the night ended and it was time for me to go, Michael insisted on taking me home personally. On the way, we talked. We really talked. For the first time in years. "I'm going to visit you next weekend," he said, "with Victoria and Emily. We'll have a meal together at your house, and I want you to teach us how to make that pot roast I loved so much as a kid." "I would love that, son." When we arrived at my humble little house, the same house he used to be ashamed of, he got out of the car and walked me to the door. "It's a nice house, Mom," he said, looking around. "I don't know why I saw it so badly before. It's cozy. It's a home." "It was always a home, Michael. You just forgot how to see it." He kissed me on the cheek and waited until I was inside and had turned on the light before he left. I sat in my old chair by the table, still in my dress, and looked around. My little house. My home. Nothing had physically changed. The walls were still the same. The old furniture was still there. The leak in the ceiling was still unfixed. But everything was different. Because I was different. I had reclaimed something I thought was lost forever. My dignity. And I had learned something valuable. Dignity is never really lost. It's only temporarily forgotten. It's always there, waiting to be claimed. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in months, and I dreamed of my husband, of my parents, of all those who were gone. And in my dream, they told me they were proud of me, proud of the woman I had been, who I was, and who I would continue to be. A country woman, a mother, a grandmother, a dignified woman. And that was more than enough.